Several years ago, I knew transformation was on the horizon for me. I had settled into a full-time role at an organization that I had formerly been consulting for, and now I was itching for some new responsibilities and challenges. As it often does, our brains can take something that's rather simple and positive, like desiring new ways to use our gifts, and turn it into this existential question that brings us back to the core of who am I, what is my purpose, and what is my meaning. So one morning, during a time of reflection, I started asking questions like, I wonder if my life matters. The refrain from every close friend in my life that I texted with some iteration of this question was, of course it matters. And I know that too. But you know, us humans, we sometimes need more than just a simple affirmation. We need measurement, proof, evidence that we're not frauds and that we're worth more than just this collection of dust particles that we're made up of. We need to know that our lives are valuable. We need to feel and see our belief in others and ourselves, and that we're actually making an impact on this planet. In those days, my soul was really asking, what is this all for? What am I really doing here? And am I making a difference with the impact of my day-to-day life? During that time of my life, I was generating a lot of activity. I was constantly on the move and hurrying from here to there, but that busyness did not really leave room for my soul to wrestle with these deeper questions. I've learned that when our souls cry out, though, in those times with those really sincere questions about our lives, God responds, even if we aren't aware exactly what we're asking for in that moment. It's a weird thing, right? That our soul can be in this like really close communion with the divine, that my conscious self can suddenly find herself in this midst of a response to something that I didn't even really know that I was asking for. This kind of building up of my belief is what we talk about a lot on this podcast. And it surprises me and always fills me up in the deepest way every time it happens. It shouldn't surprise me because it's just the goodness of God to answer our deepest questions and longings. He knows us in deeper ways than we even know ourselves, and He longs to build belief in our lives. At that time, I had this friend who was going through this extended period of self-doubt. He'd been achieving himself into just getting by for a really long time, and he was pushing himself beyond healthy limits, traveling, burning the candle at both ends. And whenever all of the spinning plates were stacked up at the end of the day, they were admittedly a little less impressive than he felt that his effort deserved. I'm sure you felt the same way from time to time. We had met a year prior in a professional context, and he was raising sponsorship funding for a conference that he was producing. He shared all of the normal details of when you're pitching to someone. And yet throughout this conversation, the question that kept welling up within me had nothing to do with the business venture that he was pitching me. I tried to push this knowing down a few times, but it was really persistent. So when he'd finally finished presenting all of the numbers and value drivers, he paused and I responded, "Can I ask you something? What if God is bigger than you think He is? What if He wants to do so much more good in you and through you than you could even imagine? What if that goodness is more expansive than the space within your current reality and way beyond what you're pitching to people right now?" And he began to weep because he knew this was true, because it was the thing that his soul had been quietly wrestling with for months and maybe even years, if we're honest. It was the thing that had been trying to creep up to the surface, but activity had been distracting him for a really long time. After this intense moment of interaction, we ended up looking at the numbers together, and my organization did invest in the event along with several others. And I was allowed to walk alongside him in the months leading up to this amazing event that he was putting together as a colleague and a friend. There was a lot of change and growth that was happening for both of us during that time. And so we got to speak truth to each other and provide support in ways that humans are able to do when they're in friendship and mentorship and community with one another. And through those valleys and plateaus and mountaintops of sorts, through gains and losses and through joys and sorrows, we got to walk alongside each other and, frankly, build belief. That's how belief often happens, doesn't it? In these quiet, simple exchanges over voice memos and text messages, through emails and phone calls to just check in on one another. These are the ways that we build belief in community. We express care and encouragement and challenge. We demonstrate through ordinary, everyday actions of friendship that we have the other person's back and that we believe in who they are and who they're becoming more than just what they're doing at that particular moment. Maybe most importantly, we express belief in what they're creating and producing in the external world, but we know that it's all a result of their internal belief because we saw it in their soul long before it ever came into this reality. Put simply, we bear witness to them. Sometimes belief culminates in this large moment, like it did for my friend. On a Wednesday morning, several months later, after we had had this initial conversation, the day of the conference finally arrived, and I found myself sitting in this large venue situated in a bustling city. I was sitting close to the front, and I turned around to scan behind me when every seat in a 1,400 person auditorium was crammed. And it was so beautiful to just see that community of makers and artists and creators and thought leaders come together to make the world better, all because my friend had an internal belief that we and many others had built with him over months and years together. As the introductory performance began, I looked down at my phone and I saw a text from my friend, and he simply said, "Thank you. I don't know what else to say. You believed in me when others would not." And there it was, the impact of building belief in one another. The beautiful truth is the nature of belief is cyclical. When we believe in ourselves and own our truth of who we are, it pours out of us. And the more we believe in ourselves, the more we give that belief to others. It changes us, and then them, and then us again. It's this beautiful cycle of regeneration and hope. I believe that the impact that belief has on us and the world around us is sacred. There's this Bible passage in a book called Lamentations that states, "Because of the Lord's great love for us, we are not consumed, for his compassions, they do not fail." As I read this familiar passage over the years, I have often wondered why the writer would choose to use two different words for the goodness of God in the same verse. He writes, "Because of God's great love, his compassions." So why not just say, because of God's great love, that love doesn't fail? It's this truth of Christianity that God's love is so great that it cannot fail us. So why intentionally choose a different word? Well, Compassions, as it's referenced in this book of Lamentations, is the same word used later in another book called Zephaniah, where God promises, morning by morning, I will dispense my justice, which is confusing. Justice, compassion, they seem pretty incompatible, right? One is merciful and kind, and the other is wrought with this severity and judgment. And yet the Greeks used those words differently than how we understand them today. For them, justice didn't mean judgment, but instead it meant the sacred way. The sacred way is the path that is kept and held and ordered by the divine. So when I read the passage with this understanding, these experiences of building belief start to fall into perspective. The idea that the belief that we build in ourselves enables us to spot and call out the belief in others starts to make sense. This act of calling forth truth makes others better, and that more systemically, it makes the community and the world at large better. And that all of this regeneration of truth and hope that is building our belief in one another, it's actually all of us just walking this sacred way together. It's the path that is kept and held and ordered by the divine. I believe that we are meant for this kind of living, this kind of journey together, that we are meant to see and call forth the truth in one another, and that by doing so, it grows belief in ourselves as well. And that all of this, it unleashes purpose and potential for this greater impact that we're all up to in the world. That whenever more of you is revealed to the world, we are all made better. Whenever your light is brighter, when your purpose is expanded, when your impact is intensified, I gain courage and grow and borrow belief from you leaning forward, and I then in turn begin to grow brighter myself. It's a beautiful truth that's been captured in many cultures as the interdependence of humanity. In African culture, they coined this term Ubuntu, meaning humanity, or broken down, it means I am because we are. This impact of belief is so simple and yet so profound. It's identifying truth in ourselves and one another, and then naming it and calling it forth. It's the knowledge that because of the love of the divine, we are not consumed, for we walk the sacred way together. It's recognizing that we are made better by the individuation of you, and in turn that I am made better by the collective. So does your life matter? Are you making a difference and an impact? If your soul is asking these questions, even if you're not conscious of it, let this be the divine's response to you today. You are made better by your belief in you. We need more of the truth of who you are in our community, and it will change all of us. At least that's my belief.